let's go to our review of the next smash hit in a genre of elevated horror. And this feels like it's in the same vein as a Barbarian that came out in 2022. Same like studio that's like a cousin of A24 with Neon. Let's talk about Longlegs. Let's hit the Rotten Tomatoes, the IMDb, and the synopsis. Rotten Tomatoes, Longlegs is clocking in at 87% critic score. IMDb, it's a 7.4 out of 10. And the synopsis reads FBI agent Lee Harker is assigned to an unsolved serial killer case that takes an unexpected turn, revealing evidence of the occult. Harker discovers a personal connection to the killer and must stop him before he strikes again. Ricky Flicks, we know that you were highly anticipating this because of your guy, Nick Cage, starring as a serial killer. That's going to put some asses in the seats. And like I said before, this is like a cousin to A24. Neon is an independent distributor that also feels like they make unique, a lot of times horror type of films. This is the most lucrative film box office opening weekend that Neon's ever had. $22 million for this. Ricky, your anticipation going in.
Anticipation going in. I want to say off the top, this marketing campaign is unbelievably good. They did such a good job marketing this movie through obviously Nick Cage being the star, but not actually showing him really. The trailer was awesome. It is not a true horror, so it also gets other people outside the horror genre in, people that loves a good mystery, a good thriller, but also it draws in the horror elements. Great name, Longlegs, not only for the serial killer, but also for the movie. All in all, like this had everything, and it definitely had a P&A budget, like promoting, definitely a marketing budget here. So they did a great job with this. And then when you start seeing the reviews coming in the week before it came in, oh, an ode to Silence of the Lambs. This movie is stupendous. Nicolas Cage is outstanding, astonishing. Some people were saying. I read in a couple of reviews before.
How horrifying it is, dude. They were saying
Yeah.
this is the scariest movie that's going to stick with you. You won't be able to go to sleep. You'll think about it for weeks to come. They were really hyping this up.
And look at that. Right, we just said horrifying. That puts asses in seats in the theaters. So I'm not surprised that this did well at the box office. I'm not surprised that this was a good movie overall. But I will say before that, my expectations were like, I think this is going to be good. But then seeing all this freaking marketing and all these reviews and everything, I'm like, holy crap, do we have like the next Barbarian? Do we have like an unbelievable film that we're coming in here? And I think it was trying to be that, or not trying to be that. I think people want it to be that. But to me, it wasn't. To me, it was a good movie. My expectations a couple weeks ago, that's what it hit. But the Barbarian hype, that type of level, did not hit for me. I don't know for you, though.
Yeah, I'll get into that in a second, Ricky Flex. I'm just thinking about the elevated horror genre. It's like it's a thing where people get really offended when you like that even exists. Like it's just a straight up horror movie. But what I noticed with like these type of movies, like they're never as scary because like they're it's not like an Insidious or it's not like Paranormal Activity horror where the job of the movie is to terrify you and scare you to death, right? Like these type of elevated horror movies, they are trying. They're first and foremost, they're trying to just make a great movie. You know, that's why I love this genre. But usually, that's where the movie's never as scary as people say. And I thought this movie, it wasn't horrifying. It's not going to haunt my dreams. You know, it feels like suffers a lot of people was disappointing in that regard. But it was a complete movie. I love the way it was written, and I love the way it was shot. Part of the reason why this movie was so like it was scary was the way it was shot. It's what you thought was coming around a corner. It's where the camera was angling. It's taking up one character in like a quarter of the frame, and then you have a hallway, you have a door, you see something. Oh, is that moving? You're waiting for something to pop out of nowhere. This movie was great, dude. I when I first saw it, I left the theater and I didn't know necessarily how good it was, but the more I thought about it, the way the characters were written, the full circle type of moments that were hinted at the beginning, and then they come back in the end in the third act. It did have, like you said before, those vibes of a Silence of the Lambs, Clarice Starling here, but this character is a tick off, is socially awkward. I think the character development or the explanation of why this person is this way was phenomenal. And it had some great performances here, right? With the lead actress and a Nicolas Cage. And I think Nicolas Cage is also one of the most divisive things about this movie. Do you want to go into him a little bit? Let's talk about Nick Cage. How did you think he did here?
Let's do it. Okay. This is a tough one for me. Because Nick Cage is one of my guys. You know that. Audience, like hardcore audience TDI members know that. Can I say I didn't love it? Can I say that? I loved the idea of this character saying like, oh, this guy, like I feel like in this day and age, think about it. This day and age, we glorify serial killers almost. That's a
spoiler review, right? Spoilers here.
That's a great question.
Spoilers. Yeah, let's do it. I'll put a warning up.
Spoilers. All right, fine.
I wanted to say it before you just started saying everything.
Okay. Spoiler review. Timestamp in the info. Starting now. I love Nick Cage. I love how this movie. I thought he was fine in this. This is not on him. Also produced this. Good for Nick Cage. I think that we live in a day and age where we glorify serial killers, and when I say that, podcasts, documentaries, true crime, like thriller type of series come out all the time. And we haven't had a serial killer movie in so long. At least like a legit one. We had the Zac Efron Ted Bundy movie that came out like 6 years ago. That's the last one I could think of. But like, this ain't the 90s, you know, where there's a serial killer movie every year from a major director. Or even the 2000s, Memories of Murder, Zodiac. So many came out in the 2000s, but not as much as the 90s. We kind of took a hiatus from that. We haven't had a good one in a while. This is a good one. And I just think this one was so clever because it was unique because it didn't glorify the serial killer. The serial killer in this one, spoiler review, doesn't actually kill anybody in this.
Yeah.
I didn't love that personally, but like I thought it was clever and unique and good writing because they did write it pretty well. I don't think perfectly, but it was pretty good. And then trying to relate this back to Nick Cage, I think he was weird enough where it worked. The makeup, whatever. You see those the promotion with what's her name? Micah Monroe, the person that plays the lead FBI investigator here, or the protagonist here, I should say. Who's also great in this film, or who is great in this film.
So good in this, dude.
She said they purposely didn't have her see Nick Cage in the makeup until they were on set, and then she was like a 74 heartbeats per minute. And then she went to 170 after seeing Nick Cage. Like, that's awesome. I love that. That's what you want in a serial killer movie. So I love that aspect of it. And the opening shot in this movie is maybe the best shot of the movie, to be honest, when you look back and you think about it.
Incredible scene.
Yeah. So I know I'm rambling here, but overall, I like Nick Cage. I love the idea, but overall, the execution of it, I thought was fine.
I feel like the movie is very serious, and like he's making a lot of choices with his face, like the plastic surgery that he's had. You could tell he's like a wannabe rock star. You know, he's singing like to himself. He's singing sounds like 60s or 70s like rock songs. You know, I couldn't make out what they were, but like there's no like music in this movie. It's very much feels like in the vein of like a David Fincher film. Feels very much in the Seven or Zodiac type of vibe. So it's like when he's acting like that, I feel like you're either, if you like Nick Cage and you know Nick Cage, the movie and the performance work. If you are apathetic or don't care about Nick Cage, you think the performance sucks. You know, that's honestly how I feel. And if you just don't like Nick Cage, you're not going to like his performance in this movie. You know, he just doesn't fit seamlessly into this Seven type of world. Did you feel that same type of vibe? I know we talked about Silence of the Lambs, the Clarice Starling comparison with Micah Monroe's character, the Lee Harker, but I also felt like this felt mood-wise like I was watching Seven.
Like he doesn't take over the movie. Like if you're thinking like I know Seven, Kevin Spacey, or KS I should say, sorry.
Have we graduated to the point where we could start saying his name regularly again? Or are we still like he who should not be named, the big KS? We'll just continue with that.
until he comes out with a release, I think he's the big KS.
Okay, I like that. I'm just trying to draw a line. So like when he is cast in a movie and like his starts his quote unquote comeback or whatever it may be, that's when
Yeah.
we'll start referring to him by something different, maybe his actual name.
Yes.
Okay,
Agreed. Okay.
good deal.
But I think you mentioned Silence of the Lambs. So like the first hour of this, totally, especially the first 10 minutes, huge Silence of the Lambs vibes. And but like think about Silence of the Lambs. Hannibal Lecter kind of takes over the movie. Anthony Hopkins was an Oscar for that. Seven, the big KS. Seven, like he's barely in the movie, but he kind of takes over. He's so good in it, right? And other movies, also other serial killer movies, that's just kind of what happens. Again, they kind of glorify them. This one's like, no, this guy's a freaking creep. The scene in the hardware store, again, spoiler review. Holy crap, this guy's an absolute
Scary.
gross, like scary dude. Like they are not glorifying him. He's barely in the movie, and when he is in the movie, it's on purposely weird and like cringy, and I think it works. I just like it is tough because if you say did Nick Cage do a good job, it's like yes, because he does. It is cringy. It is weird. It's gross. The makeup's good too, so it doesn't really,
Weirdo.
But like he does act like a total weirdo, the singing and everything. But like it's like kind of hard to judge it is basically what I'm trying to say. And he doesn't take over the movie like the normal serial killer movie that we're used to. So it's kind of hard to you can't really compare it to anything else. It's like really hard movie to judge his performance off of versus like other people.
Yeah, you can't compare it to like Spacey and Seven. You can't Big Chaos. You can't you can't compare it to Hannibal Lecter because like those are like evil, cunning, like very intelligent like characters. This guy feels like just such a loser. And it doesn't feel like he's the smartest guy in the room. He's just possessed by the devil, just straight up. It's like those other two performances feel very much ingrained in the world. This one's a little wacky. It's a little bit out there. It worked for me, and also the way they shot it, that opening scene when they flash quickly to his face, but you don't have it long enough, right, to know exactly like how he looks. You don't know at the time. That's a flashback sequence. You're not. I think this movie really worked because it's like present day is the 90s, and when they go back 20 years, right, it's the 70s, and it doesn't look all that different. So I think it was good when they don't show Nick Cage and they don't show his face. They don't show him 20 years younger. There is a little bit of a difference when they do the flashback sequence. It kind of makes that full circle moment when you go back to that day before Micah Monroe, her Lee Harker's birthday. When they go back to the 9th birthday, it makes that scene hit all so much harder. It's like, oh my God, like it's a great story where it's the person investigating the crime becomes intertwined with the actual serial killer. That's also very much, it's like a Seven thing, 100%. So I loved how they shot him and they kind of hid him. And then even in that gas station scene, him covering his face, it makes all that one-on-one that finally happens when he's being interrogated and Nick Cage bashes his head in. It makes it hit all that much harder.
Yeah, the flashback scenes were so effective, very effective, and like you could tell the widescreen turned the smaller frame, and it went to not digital, but I forget the whatever millimeter it is to make it like old school, a 70s vibe. So good, such good. Osgood Perkins, the director of this, also was an actor starring Legally Blonde. People forget.
I was gonna bring this up, dude. He's the weird dude. He's the weird dude who's holding the books and the spiky hair.
And also, fun fact, his dad is the villain in Psycho.
He played Norman Bates, dude.
Dude, Norman Bates is his dad. That's nuts. Hollywood royalty right here. So I love this. And I also just say one comment or one comment overall, two things, two sub bullets, whatever you want to call it. So the 70s versus 90s. Dude, there was barely any indistinction between the two of them.
The car was the only thing that was a telltale sign. The
car and Bill Clinton being in the background.
Yeah, those are the
two.
Dude,
that is it. But here's my second sub bullet. Going back to my TDI lore. If you're a diehard fan, you know this. Thank you for not doing the freaking title cards. I'd rather have that than title cards.
Yeah.
Write it into the story. Make it flow better. So much better. So I just wanted to say that. And I think it works when you're out in Washington State or Oregon. I forget which state it was. Whatever it is, out west. I think it flows because it's like, oh, this is middle of nowhere. It doesn't matter. Nothing changes out there. And I think it works.
I was engrossed with the story, dude. Like when you found out more and more, when you came back to that sequence, you're like, holy shit, oh my god, that little girl is Lee. And like you didn't think about that during the movie. And I'm like, oh my god. But also what this movie does, this is why I think the first half of the movie kicks ass, dude. I love the first half of this movie. The second half, it almost has like this also reminded me a little bit of True Detective in a way, where it's like you're watching it and it feels like, yo, this is true crime, but it might have a supernatural element, and it can go one way or the other. It can go supernatural or it can be grounded in reality. They chose to make this a devil movie, right? Someone's possessed. They chose the supernatural route, and that third act, it's a devastating ending. It's absolutely devastating. With what happens with Lee's mother and then her partner, like murdering, right, the his wife, and then she has to basically she has to kill him too. Devastating, devastating. But to me, that part didn't work as well, just because I like it when it's more grounded in reality. I did think the mother had a great performance too, but it was disappointing that kept you almost felt like Nick Cage, like, is he just talking to these dolls? And you thought he was gonna be the serial killer. That was like the draw of the movie, so it was kind of disappointing.
Okay, a few comments. One, the dolls. So Micah Monroe, Lee Carter, right? That's her name in this movie.
Lee Harker.
Lee Harker, tough. Um, so she's so smart. Obviously, like not telepathic. What were they saying? She is.
She is.
She could like see things
Yeah,
ahead 50% wise.
yeah. How do we
Oh my
not know?
god.
They said it in the movie too.
I know. I
Not
forget what it is,
relevant.
but you get. I think if you this is a spoiler review, so if you understand what we're saying here. So obviously, a lot of the things she experienced firsthand, which is also helping her like lead to conclusions, which is a positive for her. But a couple things. One, if she's so smart, right? All right. If they're making dolls, and obviously you know the serial killer is a doll maker, holy crap! Figure out where he works. Figure out like obviously this is a specific set of skills. Like, and you're out in the middle of nowhere. Like, figure out all right, where could he possibly be working? I don't know. I was like a red flag, like, because he has to make money somehow. He has to pay rent. He's got to do. I know he lives in the basement, whatever. But like, I don't know. That was just something I was thinking in my mind the entire movie. Two,
That was a good reveal. That was a good reveal though when you found out he was living in the mother's house the entire time.
but like, this is what I was about to bring up. Did you not predict this movie?
Did I predict what? That she was
Did you not?
a nun?
Okay.
Like, pretending to be a
So
nun?
opening scene happens, right? It's like, okay, boom, little girl. All right, Micah Monroe. She's figuring stuff out, whatever. I didn't piece it together then. But right when the birthday came from Blair Underwood, the head FBI guy, her boss, Micah Monroe's boss, the protagonist's boss, Lee Harvey's boss, I was like, oh, well, the end of the movie is going to be he's going to get the axe or whatever. He's going to be the murderer at the end. And then somehow like that was so obvious to me. So then it was like, okay, how is that going to happen? And then right when we went to the mom's house, and after that, they were talking about, they kept flashing back to her as a little girl. I was like, oh, she knows this case. She's a survivor as well. I like knew that immediately. Immediately.
Oh, Ricky, no. So what I liked about this movie, it felt like it was like you were figuring out the case at the same time they were, where it's like, okay, we know she has these weird feelings, right? She can predict these things. Oh, she is connected to this somehow. But like, there's going to be a big boom at the end of this movie, right? It's whether you think that big boom lands. Like, that first off, his partner, like, the birthday thing. Everyone keeps bringing up the birthday. She's like, you want to come to my birthday, right? You see, like, okay, it's a family, it's a father, right? And like, you see, like, the father always kills like the wife and then the kid, right? But the big thing was, if you really bought that the mother, right, was doing all these crimes, did that work for you? I think that was the big thing, because the hinting, it feels like as an audience member, I loved piecing it together as we go. And it felt like I was saying like, every like 10 minutes in the second half of the movie, like, I see where we're going. It's just, how are they going to land the plane?
I kind of saw how they were landing the plane. I'm not gonna lie to you.
But you predicted that she was murdering for Nicolas Cage's character?
Well, no. Well, number one, not predicting. But right when she said they needed an accomplice, that's when I was like, has to be the mother.
Well,
Without
the
a doubt.
mother was very creepy in this movie. It was good that they didn't show the mother in the first scene, because once again, she looks so different from 20 years previously. Like, she is very straight and straight and narrow, right? She's very a disciplined mother. And then 20 years later, you would think that she went to Woodstock. You thought she would be like a flower child by the way she was acting. Also, Alicia Witt, amazing performance from her too. I
So
thought
good. You could say like Micah Monroe as Lee Harker was great, and I think Blair Underwood was also great as the FBI guy, and Nick Cage we already talked about, divisive. You could say she was the best performer in this.
Alicia Witt.
Yeah, I like, if you had to like pick like who literally was the best actor in this, it's between her and Micah Monroe.
Micah Monroe was so good though, bro. I love the way she acted and paired with the writing of this movie. Like the character just made so much sense. Like the mother doesn't really take the child out of the house, so therefore she's going to be very socially awkward, right? And having those scenes with her and her partner's kid, I just felt like it's so painful to listen to these conversations, but the only one who would like the kid is so like oblivious to what's happening that the conversation works. Like those scenes where she is like pulling a Morgan Freeman all night and like studying, right? Like the pictures, the files, whatever it may be.
I believe that.
She was amazing at it. And then to also have it's kind of a silent performance for a lot of it. She's on her own. What was one of my favorite scenes, aside from the opening one, is her in the house and then she hears the knock on the door and that's where the camera, she's in the corner, and then like you have the hallways, you have like the darkness, her going outside, then you have the pan to the house and you see Nicolas Cage's character walking through. That was unbelievable, bro.
Okay, that's another thing I want to say. You're right, that was awesome. Again, Silence of the Lambs, like Seven, like all the odes, like homages to all these serial killer movies, this had.
Yeah.
But holy crap, it was so like if this person's so freaking smart, you don't leave the house. I immediately thought like, oh, if she leaves the house, he's gonna enter the house.
Yeah.
Like if she is so smart, you can't literally the scene before they're saying how she's a genius. You can't have her do that because that's so dumb.
Yeah, and she seems like a genius, but is she a genius or she just is so
Connected to the case.
She's so intertwined with this, right?
They had the tests that were like, oh, like you got 8 times, like you got it, like you nailed this. And usually people don't even get it once. Like they basically were like saying she's like absolutely like she can literally see the future. And she goes, oh, well,
it's Satan helping her get these right, dude. That's like the point.
But like it's not connected to the case. That's why like I don't know. I'm on both sides of the fence here. That's why like I don't know. And I don't want to take your job here, but you did mention the supernatural stuff.
That's what I was getting to. Yeah.
I'm with you, man. But I'm on a deeper level. I'm not like if you're going supernatural, go supernatural. Go all the way. For me, first hour is Silence of the Lambs. You have all this like hallway scenes, POV shots, the tensions built up. The sound design, by the way, was unbelievable. Not just the camera work, the sound design, the music, awesome. The eerie
metal
music,
ball
especially
ringing,
in the setting.
dude. The metal ball ringing.
Amazing.
Yeah.
But for me, if you're gonna go supernatural stuff, don't try to explain shit. Don't try to explain anything. I'm just gonna accept it. But they're trying to explain this stuff, like, bro, just whatever. Just say it's ambiguous. But they're trying to explain everything. I'm just like, holy crap. I'd rather have it be real and you explain everything, or you go supernatural and you just don't explain anything. Just say it's devil shit, and then I'm like, okay, it's fine. But don't try to be in the middle. And that's what this movie was to me. It was too much in the middle of that. And that's where like I have my biggest beef with this movie. And again, that's like kind of like more of like a personal thing. It's not like a movie problem. That's a personal problem with me and the type of movies I like. For me, it was too much trying to do a combo. And I did not like that.
It felt like the movie, like I said before, it was at a fork in the road, like a True Detective, where that's always going to be grounded in reality. They can say like all this like occultist stuff is happening, but it's all going to be a bunch of like bullshit. Here, what made it like a horror movie is that they were at the fork in the road, and that when it became time, right, in that third act, they're like, we're an old school horror movie, we're a devil movie. I thought it did make the decision, dude. I think it was just you didn't know we were on that path. The tone of the first half of the movie, right, is telling you Fincher, and then the second half is basically any devil movie you've ever seen with someone that is like a disciple or follower. But to have like the mother thrown in the way she is, it did work for me. But I did not like the second half as much as I did the first.
Right, and like And like I said before, like you kind of could see where things were going. You saw like, oh, like they already knew the killer of all these families was the father. It wasn't actually the serial killer. So you could tell the supernatural elements were coming. But then you kill Nick Cage at the start of the third act, which is fine. It's a bold decision once again, not glorifying the serial killer in a serial killer movie. But it's like, crap, like you have to try to find these answers. It's like you don't have to try to find. Like I don't know, for me it just didn't work as well. And I think the movie, it is finished. It is like it's like a complete story. It's just for me I didn't like it.
Okay. Yeah. I feel like it is going to be a matter of taste. Like for this movie in a couple different ways. Like, do you like Nick Cage? If you do, you're going to like the performance, right? Do you like horror movies, like the elevated horror that still feel grounded, right? You might not like the ending to this movie. You know, it just felt like kind of that's the way it rolls. Oz Perkins, by the way, breakthrough. This is a breakthrough movie for him, right? Big for Neon, $22 million, like we said, most that it's ever made. The studio, they are up on the up and up right now. uh Oz Perkins, guy from Legally Blonde, like, and he's doing this goddamn movie and has some
Unbelievable.
incredible shots in this movie. I feel like this is going to be the first of many things. It kind of gives me a Zach Kreger vibe from Barbarian with his like acting career, him appearing in like comedies and like is never going to be a great lead actor, you know, will just pop up in a bunch of like kind of shitty movies. But all of a sudden they notice maybe they're meant to be behind the camera. I think we could be seeing the same thing here. I'm kind of looking forward to seeing what Perkins' new project is because this felt very original. People are into this shit.
Yeah, totally agree. He's definitely, I think he definitely knows he belongs behind the camera. He's done a couple other things. Um, I think that's like number one of like the come up is the director here, but number two is Micah Monroe. I think
Yeah,
because if you look at her filmography, she's been kind of like she's been around for a long time. You know, it's just that she hasn't been like the star in anything, and if she has been, she's kind of been overshadowed. So like she's been in a small role in Honey Boy, small role Independence Day Resurgence, small role It Follows, but like all small to minor supporting roles, and then she was one of the stars in The Guest, which is a movie I love. I think is underrated critically, but that's a Dan Stevens show. By the way, Stan Stevens in this movie, you must have saw it, the trailer for Cuckoo. Whoa. I don't think that movie's gonna be great, but that's good for him. He looks pretty good in that.
the
Different
Neon
type,
movie.
diversifying the portfolio, like being the main villain probably in that as well, but different, totally different than The Guest. I think this is good for him. He stock up, I think, after this. But I think for Micah Monroe, it's like this is finally like formidable. And I think after this, start to see her name more in the tabloids, in the rumor mill, on bigger projects. So I think stock up for her high up, and same with Alicia Witt, who we talked about.
Yeah, both of them definitely. Micah Monroe is only 31 years old. And so it seems like she could be joining that conversation that we had a few weeks back. We're talking about potentially like movie stars in the future. If she can like kind of use this to catapult her to that next level, something to where she's a more recognizable name and where she is maybe going beyond being just a lead in an independent film. You know, maybe she gets another broad project. Maybe she works again with Oz Perkins. Who knows, Ricky Flex? Any other strengths or flaws you want to bring up before we score?
No, I I think I've said on this podcast, psychological thriller is my favorite genre of movie. And yes, this had horror elements of it, and I think that worked well. It wasn't too horror for me personally, who I'm not a big fan of the super horror. I like elevated horror, which we talk about a lot. But I think overall, we're overdue for a good serial killer movie. This was that, right? And I'm not going to say this is like Memories of Murder or any of the Finchers that we've talked about, Girl with Dragon Tag 2 or Zodiac or Seven. I'm not going to say it's Silence of the Lambs. But this was this, you know, this appealed to my appetite. It really did. So I really like this movie. Yes, maybe the ending in the third act maybe didn't appeal to me as much because it went too supernatural and it went to a couple things I didn't necessarily love. But overall, I missed this. I think actually the last time I really liked a serial killer type of thing was Mindhunter TV series, 2 seasons there. I think that's the last time. Like Dahmer wasn't really that great. I think Mindhunter was the last time I really like loved a serial killer type of project. This is the next best thing.
I think it's intuition. Is that what she has? Where she can predict the future? She's just very intuitive. I feel like there's a different word for it.
They said a word in the
Yes.
movie. I
And
can't think of it.
it's a word that people are probably screaming right now in their cars if they're listening. They're like these idiots, but she's intuitive. Like she just knows things about this case. All right, scores. I'm giving this an 84.
77 for me.
Okay, that does it for our review of Longlegs. Let's now